we're gonna do just a little bit more background in understanding what is happening in the church in Thessalonica.
Nikunen pe me po ko hede ke ba esi asha ke ba ken ma de esi dogu Thessalonica akunma ate athatek me de krete hunkono.
Now in the book of Acts chapter 17 and verse 4 it says that there were some that believed and some that did not believe.
Toda ite lisasa ku pernya pu amadu ne basaku no mapti ne ba le no ahina te he kie the ne ma je te ma je to.
Now you may wonder, why was Kupalu able to go into a Judapu church and to teach?
Ni menam ate the ma asisinge ke ma shude ga ma de Kupalu no eno cha ide ma ke yala khalumite eno ko hede eno chat food for me a chak no le ma jurfu si ma ku chobe hogun he mi mente ma esiela khak ite Kupalu he samite.
Has anyone wondered about that?
Mo be shude no ko no klo
Well, because Kupalu was a rabbi, in other words a teacher, he had studied under a great Judapu teacher.
Amete Judapu sina lekha Kupalu mite ne ma Kupalu ma ite le swa sinema ama sran ma da Judapu food prep go.
So, being a Judapu teacher, Kupalu would be welcomed in any Judapu church to teach.
Meno amete sana eno le swa sa kana Judapu sini mena ena ba achaba Judapu si srok batel fote be esi ma Judapu sini ma lekha Kupalu go.
They did not have cell phones and newspapers and a lot of communication back then.
Nindera kesi no ada esilo ibe cha shui sho hangi na ma asana force yu ko to close in go.
So the Judapu churches did not know that Kupalu was now a Christian.
Mena ha asana mite esit pen be shulu to ibe touch lu to ne mena te he no ha asisinge go ma Kupalu na ma thoke ma kripu thoke ma chomre fu could pray ma asina singe go.
Before he was a believer, he had been throwing Christians into prison.
Da Kupalu ma athale da ma te kripu to he aji le chomre ngo to khino ha enama asana asi amina mishin ne ma kripu si go.
But now as a believer, he was a teacher of Yeshua.
Na ba ma Kupalu jige chomre ngo no ha athwa ke ma de ite sana hu de ma pastor pre go ya acha iswa ma ahotara ma lisa sa si go.
Tablu, in Acts chapter 17, would you read verse 5? This is what happened after Kupalu was teaching in that Judapu church.
Ba pon ma shobe de ma Kupalu no ha he ku chobe he iswa to ma lisa se ba ite sok banut pho he na ba iswa to khino ha kiesi no ha tni krete asme mete ai shoga.
So, Tablu, would you read verse 5?
Predonia pu ama lu susatama pu anya ma he manaro yuda pu tehi tekha tethi etiro at eklo kaya richard de ali de ku yithiro anomi the kruta pra lojo u the vi lojo tiapu etiku pujui teru cheni Kupalu na ku sila de kaya bimu yitihi amete ni ne yuda pu yitihi na kaya bimu tihi je me prone kuji sa ahiro anemya pu ku Paulu na ku Sila.
So the Judapu who did not believe in that Judapu church, they were furious and they caused a big uproar in the city.
Ni ba ma esi hasra ku ba kena ha ma julpu simara je ma ku Paulu hi chona esi ju tom te ne he esi no ha asana si produne ka mena si produne no ha asana da esi dog no ma esi ma da ju to te he si produ te ne ma asana da ede amisus apro ma sana ami te ne ki ma hu da ji sana esi no.
The new believers thought that Kupalu may be hurt, may be killed, so they rushed him out of the city.
Mara kia simada majurfu simana je ma Kupalu ni ne esina bana kina ni asinge na da kia si asi plot dune Kupalu no bana kina esina asana a ikathe ke Kupalu no ba sana no chau ba ulu da rot pho ba.
And Kupalu and Silas, his helper, they went to the next city called Berea.
To da ma Kupalu na da aku pichi the prima ku Silas na ko esisina na a chato ko se da da ni the pho ko da hintis I don't know.
And Kupalu and Silas, they began to again teach in that city.
To ba Kupalu na ku Silas a ha to ba doban the phone he esino ha mai sapo se tu po ga mai ai cho ko se ke silo loplina da chom lang ko.
The Judapu in Thessalonica found out where Kupalu and Silas were, and they came down to make a fuss in that city.
Munada ma jurfu si te heda awuda dora rot phone he ma da Thessalonica rot phone go. Esini ho na da ma Kupalu ma he so alisa se da esi dora bire de puat ani ho ne esino ha he ba jurfu si da ba dollar ne no he plus hulu da ba Kupalu on fu ba san ho da he mi su sala lo he mi si pla dollar lo ke si ho ko.
So the believers in Thessalonica, so the believers in the new city of Berea, they had to get Kupalu out of there again.
Senada to hu ne he ma Kupalu he saba doban fu ma do mi na Berea na ko he ma julfu si he ma na je ma anida Kupalu hi so ai so na ba ni aji ne te no ha asana ite anokle wa u ka se Kupalu to hu bo.
I want to take a moment to explain one thing.
Kunne ma sara no ha asi ishoplo si tu chini.
What Kupalu was teaching in the Judapu churches.
Ma abe shana da ma Kupalu no ai so da ma jurufu si sora ko ma so mai te.
Now, the Judapu had always read the Old Testament and they understood that the Messiah, when he came, he would put down their enemies and he would establish his kingdom.
Da jurufu si te he na ma ona phale sa na ko ona singi vena da chak ma Yeshu esi kri mai si Messiah he na he khu ne ma a he me te pya lo ke ma da ke mo da te su lo plin ba he na ba a he te Yeshu na he ba he mi thwa the ma da sana Yeshu a hi du hi ulong.
They were waiting for Messiah. Oh, he is going to bring peace. He's going to protect Israel. It will be wonderful.
Man esi opo me shu na ma hina da oh ma ke da Yeshu ha ton ne ma da pengin ne ma shu da mo re ne pa sana da pe jur fu sing ne ma ke lo me she pa pe to opo me shu na ku ko.
But there's something that most of them did not understand.
Mana ite au pata che ma da esi lo pli asana au en ne au ile ma da esi no ha asana asinge ma mana asana aplo to ko.
There are places in the Old Testament, for instance, Isaiah chapter 53 and Psalm 22.
Da lisa sa lo ku sin sia sana da Isaiah ma dun ite nga sa to to ne da sama ha kare tu
22. And also, well, in these places, it talks about Messiah suffering.
Maba sana ada pun pehe lisa nama naklo na olon he namara ahe shushu mada ma Yeshu ahe he khune ma abina beshe ine pa sana ide so fasoro ine pa go.
And also in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament, it says that Messiah would be killed.
Tuna da lisa sa kuma ite Daniel lisa sa kuna to onuma he na da sa Yeshu ha to da he khune ma sana da Yeshu na ma kia misalupa he go.
So how could that be? He was coming in power to protect Israel, but then he was going to be killed? They did not understand.
Ani da asinge na ma upload to mete ma sana da ona asinge na ma da kena Yeshu ha to da he khune ma da asinge ne ma Yeshu na meta tu lolo plipe de asinge ba na me mana da lisa sa kuna hisho luna mana ha to ne ma I sage pa I no class in ma sana at palo.
So Kupalu would be teaching the Judapu that the Messiah, when he came, he would come twice. The first time he would suffer and be killed.
Manada Kupalu iswana ma iswa kudigo he iswana ma da Yeshu he da he kuna ma he na hu pa na go ra to hu na ma da Yeshu he to da he khune ma shu ma da ite da Yeshu ngi na ma abina beshe si faso da si o ene pa.
But he will be coming again, and that will be in great power.
Manada Yeshu na sa ga to ne ma he ku puk se pa to hu ba he pu na hu ba na ken ma da he do me lo applique si na da ite ma Yeshu ma do tu pie do tu lo pray appropriate to do.
So now we can turn to 1 Thessalonians. Kupalu and Silas and Timothy, they were concerned about these new believers in Thessalonica.
Nida ma Kupalu na da aku buce ku Timothy na da ku te Silas na go he asina wa asishin ya pe ma da ma jurfu si da do ma da Thessalonica na go he ma asi rat do na go asi cha isa ma lisa sa sina wa asi shepe ma da jurfu si ma je asi lango si thi na go.
The teaching of Kupalu and the beginning of a new church there of believers, that stirred a lot of trouble in Thessalonica.
Mede ma da ma Kupalu le sa tu bana da ma ite shushu ma da jurfu si ma je chama ngo si te ne bana kina ma esi no hasi mi to tek la de esi sora ku to ku ma da shushu ma da esi leji he ku jo bene mina asana da atotelo lo pli mina ma da esi dog bana kina ma sana ide pet na si te ne ko.
Now Kupalu had to be driven out of Thessalonica. He was driven out. But the new believers, they had to live there.
Ida Kupalu ngi na ma da ite kia mi chalu he ma da biklet pa vik te lu go he mana jurfu si ma da aje ma Kupalu te he aje ma Kupalu he te na ma ambe okay pa ba esi dog no go.
In 1 Thessalonians in chapter 1 would you read verse 6?
Thessalonica.
Thessalonica, yeah.
What's 1 and 5?
No, 6.
6. No color ite kolote angi he. Yeah. Thessalonica.
Ti nyambu pe nam ya se ro u mi tu na cho ti mana ro ti te khru te lo chi su pa te khru ni la bi ti phi su te krimilia kina te ja se ya se me te krute lo pe ti ho.
The believers there were mostly Gentiles, non-Judapu.
Mana da esidong bona da phonoma mara kia ma hona je ma ku pa lo isa sin he shushu a tha ke khru sin ma shushu ma da au in ne le ma da ki ma jur pu si ma to te hino.
And they were not being treated well by many in the city.
Thoma da esinge ma je ma chama ngo sin he thoma esina tha jur pu ma to no sana da ki esi mi chan ne si ga.
And then of course some of them had been Judapu, and of course they would not be treated well by the other Judapu.
Ni mana da esi jur pu si he ma je chama ngo sin ba te ve esina ma da jur pu si da ro sin ma min na mi shin ne si ga.
So Kupalu knew that those new believers, they were having difficulty. It was a struggle for them.
Mina Kupalo no wa singi go he ma da ai sa tho no wa ki esi ma da tu ji pa chama ngo ba na khin he da esingi ma chu ma da a yen ne so pa so re o in ne pa Kupalo singi go.
And of course they were praying for them, but they were all, Kupalu and his workers were praying for them, but they wondered, how are they doing?
Ni Kupalo na ku buche sinema ku chobe ne apu ma da te asida ma ji chama ngo si te hin he mana esina ku chobe bote ma esina da esingi na ma si singi go da esin ma mo re sana bana khin ma da esingi na ma so pa so ba te si singi go.
They were wondering, is there so much trouble there that they are discouraged and maybe not following closely to Yeshua?
Esina wa si she mete ma sana da jur ma da esima aji chuma ngo si te hin he kripu atu tha the se te hin ma da mete da esingi na ha kene so phashar isi lu ne ma a yen ne pe singi ne ma da esingi na ma la kra to sana da chumre la ngo to e esina ma sana da ada taga si asip lo na ma sana jiba chumre ngo to e asana atni shu no ko se si she man ko ligo.
Sometimes this happens with believers. A believer has to unite with a church where they can all strengthen each other.
Nida ki mana ji lang chumra ngo si te he na ma kha bin lo ko he me na ha sana da re ne ma da lo plima ji chumra ngo si te he na ma he plot chulu da sro ku tu ku na sana da he ite plot chulu jong lo ko.
I think it's important to remember that Kupalu had, when he was in Thessalonica, he had taught them many things.
Bo da pingin ma are ne ma da petumani da Kupalu no ha he o da don he ma Thessalonica ku na ma Kupalu ma iswa in ne esi da julpusi lo pliki esi go.
One of the things that he had taught them was that being a Christian meant that you will have difficulties in this world.
Ma to ba Kupalu ma aisa lo au in he mana aisa to te jena ma sana da aiso esina kene esina wa ji chom me ngo to ba tha kripu kene ma da esi over o da hiku lo pli batel fote be esi tha ji chom ngo si ne ma so pasare udipa aiso ba.
Becoming believers means that we are not part of Satan's kingdom anymore. Now we are part of God's kingdom.
Mede ma da kine pe jiga cham ngo tho ne ma sana pe pa te pa da ma pe solusi hi ku ngo he kun ne ma pe tho okay da ma chumre ku ko sana da chumre hi ku.
It means that we have become strangers here because our home is in heaven.
Mena asana mena mite pe ji chumre ngo ne he da pe o da he kun ma sana pe tho ma ki ye ma hu da lo pe chai pe tu mide ma da pe hi ni ne ma u di da ma khu ko. Pe o da ki ye pe he o whether he
So Kupalu had already warned them of this. He'd already taught them about this.
Mada ma pe lo please ma da Kupalu no ai show tho ma etsi ba ai show tho lo esi go.
Now Kupalu, he says in this letter, he says that many times when he's writing to this church, he's writing to Thessalonica, he says that many times he has tried to come and visit them, but Satan has hindered him.
Pada ma Kupalu araheli ko hai araheli da ma sura ku da Thessalonica ku no ko hai ona da alora ku no ma ona hititi ko hina obviously hai ole kan ne siwa mana da de ma pislu no ha mi tatu ke pe veli khali.
So Kupalu sent Timothy, one of his helpers, to go to Thessalonica and to see how they were doing.
Ni me te Kupalu no ha chan ni da dokuma Thessalonica to no ha asu ma Kupalu no asu cha ke ma aku picit pre ko ha ku Timothy no ko sino cha me lu da ba do ban to phogu no ma da kripusi te no ma ade en to the no mai te kreti asisngi ko.
And Timothy came back with a very good report. He said they are doing well. It's difficult for them, but they are doing well.
Da kutimiti akakya ka sen ha ai shoma Kupalu ne ai na ma jurpusi no ma da singi na ma supasoro en ne ma mana esino ha asana au phun ne na chomre si mi no ha sana mi ren ne
They are loving each other. They are spreading the gospel.
Wa esino ma the prima amore lu tupa cinema iswa asana da lisa salango cinema ai show challo ke sida rusi.
I want to spend a few minutes that we have left on talking about this. Now, Kupalu had warned them that the Christian life is full of difficulties. There is today a teaching among some believers that sounds very different from this.
Oma pesingi ko he da kene pe thwa kripu ma pe ji chomre ngo si ne ma na pe nge ma yen ne ko he mana au te thi ma da kripu si te no a le ai swa si a he si ma khona da ma pe singi na.
I'm going to mention a teaching, and by the way, the reason why I mentioned bad teaching and bad teachers is because this is what Kupalu did.
Ma mite sra no ha ai chope ma da ma ari kema huda ai swa tomato te ai swa su te to ban da sa o si lo pli ma da ai le swa su si te na mite sra ai chope mite ma sana da ma Kupalu. What do you mean by that's what Paul did? As in, like, he was also a bad teacher?
No, he was warning. He in places warned the churches that there was a lot of bad teaching going around. A lot of bad teachers.
Ma me te sa no ai si choga pe ma da au en ne ki mu dai swa su lo no me te ma Kupalu ma ai swa ga ko he na ai choma da ba au sha ke ba na kin ma Kupalu ma ai swa ga si go da si ite dogu cinema kiema hura iswa ruri cinema uga ko.
If you wanted to read about this, one place is in 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 3 through 5. And then in another place, maybe even more than once, he actually gives you the name. He actually names them who are teaching wrong doctrine, wrong teaching.
Ni au pada lisa sa ku tu purvo ko ma da Kupalu ma ai sho ma da okay si the ai sho to ha ada cha da ma ke mui ko na o at pre na ma ke ma hu da ai swa ni ne ma da chom re ngo si ma to ai swa ma ai swa su lo lo ai sho ma.
So that is why today many times we will talk about bad teaching. It's very important.
Meno ha da mi te da si da Kupalu na swa swa to meno ha da pengi na ma pebel singe ke pebel swa ke mi de ma sana da ai chi ne pengi ko da pe singe da ma ke mo da iswa la ho si te hina wo ko.
I'm going to mention one teaching that is around a lot.
Ma kunen ma srai chope ma da si le iswa te o au te pwe ko he ma da sana pe method lo ni ho ko ve si ko.
You may have heard some of this or you may not have.
Na sini ho na thoga tamne sini ho na tho singe ka toki oh to ko.
I listen to there's like at least 3 Christian radio stations that I can get in my car.
Da một ka ku ma sra một ka ku ma sana radio o soku ma da sra ni dani ma ko.
And when I'm driving, I will listen to many of the teachers on there.
Ni ba sra ite vi cho một ka ne ma ani da ma ite da video si esi so ite na sa ni da ko.
There is a bad teaching that I hear quite a bit.
Thoma au pat cheni ma da sran hwan ni ho en ne ko ma da esile sot ku ma da asu na ko ai asena I saw le ho.
Now, if you've never heard of this is going to sound very strange.
Da ma sa lo hi sho na ma kene sini singi ka to sini ho na le ka to ne ma sana da sana da singi na ma ta pa cho si pa hu lo ko.
And the reason I'm talking about this is because that Kupalu has just been telling us that being a believer means that there are a lot of difficulties in our life.
Ni ma mete sran ho asi chope mete ma sana da pe tu singe ba he da ma Kupalu na shop pe ko kene pe ji chome ngo si ne ma pe talk report ne ma da pe ngi na ma so pasero ne di pa chope ko.
Now, when we have a difficulty or when we need something, we pray to God.
Ni me na da pengen na kene pe so pasore o ne ma sana da pe ku cho be the na da chomre ko ha sana pe si kui lu ti chi ko.
And if God says it is a good thing, he will give it to us. If he says no, it's not a good idea, then he will say no.
Mina da pe kui tho chomre ne ma kene chomre no ha hena man ne kui ti choma re ne ma da pe ti pa ko he mana da kene ne chomre no ha hena man li kui na ma re to ne ma da pe to ko.
But this is the bad teaching that I hear quite a bit.
Amana aku ma da ma kia Israel ho na ko. Sara ni ho in no in ne ko.
The teachers make it sound like they got it from the Bible. It'll sound like it's part of the Bible. But actually, this idea that they teach comes from outside of Christianity. It comes from the world.
Mana da radio ku si ma ale so te hina ko ha isa se na da ma isi phali sa se a he kana ko mana ni ne na ma da ale so si lo pli na ma ani ho da do da ki si he da ro si ne pa asana iswa na me ko.
Here's the teaching. If you want something,
ma ai ile so na ma na kene ne si te ne ma.
The teachers say, I have found out a way for you to get it.
Aina okay ne si te ne ma da te da na me te da si lo si te ne ma da si mani ve hino ga sana da me pupe sti pa da disipa hino.
They say, I have discovered that you have a great power in your words that you speak.
Ba isa no hena ma da ite a hola de chen ma da ma ne lo hibbe thina te higo.
If you speak bad things, discouraging things, then bad things and discouraging things will come into your life.
Ba asina kinne si he ju shu ma hura re to ke si shock si ye si ne ma da singe ma si khabi shu ma da re to thwane li shock si ne ma si khabi lo ka se di pa.
But if there are good things if there are things that you want, you can use your words and those things will come to you.
Mana ahina ken ne si te ne ma ona ne lo hithe ne ma asana ne si ne ma he ga di ne khali di pa.
Sometimes they say when God spoke in the beginning of the Bible, he spoke and the universe was created.
Ma thoba esino ahina oda ma li sa khalu khina ma ahina da ba ite chomre no ko alo hithe chono me hithe no ba da hikul lopli no thothe ami thothe ahina.
And they say your words are powerful too, and you can speak the words and bring those things that you want to you.
Meno ahina mite chomre no a hithe ne ma thothe he meno da singe ne ma kinesi hithe ne ma te da silo sisi yute hinama heka dida si udipa hinama.
That doesn't sound anything like what we are taught in the Bible.
Manada esile iswasi nama asanada lisa sekwa isana ko foto ko he asanada lisa sa iswa ko.
What they teach is not you asking God for it. This is a power that your words have that will bring the thing to you that you want.
Ni ai so ko tum ada kene si yitu chun ne masih be kui jo be re jomre ai chu be he manada esile iswa nama hena kene si yitu chun ne ma si be he thi chon na me de ma si lo hi be thi na sana I de adunia adu tunia ko mana si lo hi be thi.
Has anyone ever heard anything like this?
Ma ai so ma ar ko na ma si ma pe ni hu no ko pe na.
I'm not surprised if you haven't, because, well, you can hear it sometimes on YouTube, but it's mainly, I mean, the stuff I hear, of course, is in English, but this is becoming a large teaching in Christianity in the world.
Ma le so ta ko na ma asana ona adu thega ko he asana de hikulo lopli na ma asana ani ho che cho di party asing to ka.
So if you hear something, just keep it in mind and listen carefully and see if this is that particular teaching.
Mino asana sini ho te ju ne ma asana te tomak la ko hen ma sana da de nikakse ko sana da ma sini ho te ju ma sana da ai le so ko e.
It will sound good because they use some Bible verses, but it is not what the Bible really teaches.
Ni da sini ho na ma sana da ahe na ma sana ni ne ko mi ma una ahe sho pa ko da ma lisa set klot matemasi no ko he mino amite ai sho pa na da lisa set matemasi na ma ato pete ne ko mana ni ne na ma ni data titi meme ko mi ma da lisa iswa na da esi le iswa na ma ko ko